Welcome to Behind Recapped YouTube channel. The advent of December, the cold iciness days all at once began to heat up. All fronts flared up in Ukraine, and Ukraine's hearth of freedom turned into burning. More potent than ever, the Ukrainians were sporting out a mythical resistance around Bakhmut, specifically on the Japta front, but now it became time for the offensive. And this week, with the simultaneous attacks on the vicinities annexed by using Russia, the Ukrainian military's iciness offensive flared up. The objectives of the Ukrainian Air Force and artillery have been the large Russian Navy bases in the Crimea, Melito, Balat, Mario Balat, Donetsk, and Luhansk, in addition to the robust gadgets of the Russian army. This week, Moscow's troops were hit tough through the last months, and even Moscow's allies started to retreat, especially the newly mobilized Russian barracks. The Russian bases in Melitopol and the Wagner Organization Imperative Army Base have been the most vital ones. The Ukrainians had now made development on the map, had both psychological and climatic blessings, and managed to put a first-rate deal of stress at the Moscow administration. The Ukraine-Russia struggle inflicted heavy political, navy, and economic blows at the Moscow administration. Leader Vladimir Putin accompanied some of techniques that the European taken into consideration illegal as a way to make massive profits inside the ongoing struggle in Ukraine. The Russian leader did no longer have many alternatives, for the losses of the Russian military had approached 100,000. When we look at these days, consistent with the intelligence reports of many nations, the Moscow Navy lost around 97,000 soldiers in this battle, and together with the wounded fleeing from the front or refusing to fight, those losses had been drawing near 400,000 in overall. Consequently, Vladimir Putin turned into aware that he couldn't acquire any victory in Ukraine with hundreds of lots of mobilized Russian infantrymen who were a long way from Navy schooling, and against the war, considered one of Putin's non-conflict regulations, become his solidarity with the sector famous gang organizat Kingdom Wagner Institution. Understanding that the mobilization practices announced for the duration of Russia did now not work, Putin dispatched members of Evgeny Prigozhin's gang company, Wagner Organization, to combat in Ukraine. Of direction, Wagner contributors acquired a fantastic deal of monetary guide from the Moscow management to fight in Ukraine. Prigozhin started out to apply this situation whilst the anxiety in the struggle increased and Russia suffered heavy losses. The Wagner leader demanded improved economic assist for his organization as a way to be greater powerful in Ukraine. Later in the battle, the inclusion of Wagner Organization members in the Russian army might pose an excessive amount of threat to Vladimir Putin. The Wagner group, on the different hand, had drastically elevated its presence in Donetsk and Luhansk. In Japanese Ukraine, Wagner gang participants who actively carried out offensive operations in those areas started out to suffer heavy losses because the Kiev Navy multiplied their counter-assaults and concentrated on Jap Ukraine. Recently, a shocking occasion took place on the headquarters of the Wagner Organization, wherein its miles claim that Evgeny Prigozhin and his son Pavel are staying. An explosion occurred at a resort within the quickly occupied city of Kadivka, inside the Luhansk region, where the headquarters of Russia's Wagner Group is located, consistent with Serhiy Haidai, head of the Luhansk Regional Navy Administration. The Ukrainian Defense Force blew up the hotel inside the town of Kadivka, which gang participants of the Wagner Group used as their headquarters. After the attacks, a hearth broke out inside the resort where loud explosion sounds have been heard. The big flames also spread to some rooms of the inn, which the Wagner agency used as an ammunition depot. Because the hearth spread to these elements, the explosion started out to growth. As a result of long efforts, the fire inside the lodge changed into added underneath, managed with the intervention of firefighters. Luhansk Governor Serhiy Haidai said that the resort becomes centered by Ukrainian forces and that the person